already sided with those states. So the big question for the Supreme Court comes down to harm. Will the states prove that they are hurt by the Biden administration's plan? Now, the program has been on hold as it's been winding its way through the courts. That's left millions of borrowers who've already applied in limbo.
The Supreme Court is expected to make a decision later this summer. Former Vice President Pence is calling out some of his party on the one-year anniversary of the war between Russia and Ukraine.
There can be no room in the leadership of the Republican Party for apologists for Putin. There can only be room for champions of freedom.
Pence says his top goal is restoring peace quickly. He said the fastest way to get that done is helping Ukraine fight off the Russian invasion. Gilbert has finally gotten his pink slip from some big offices around the country. The Washington Post, the USA Today network that includes more than 200 newspapers, and others including the LA Times have all dropped Gilbert. His creator Scott Adams made a series of racist comments on his YouTube channel on Wednesday. He said that because the true majority of Black Americans agreed in a poll that it's okay to be white, Black people should be designated a hate group, and white people should get the hell away from people. He said later his comments were taken out of context. In a follow-up video posted yesterday, Scott acknowledged most of his income would be gone by next week, and his reputation is probably destroyed. Ryan Berman, KFI News. Freddie Freeman hit a two-run homer, but the Dodgers ended up losing their spring training opener 7-4 in the Milwaukee Brewers in Phoenix. The game yesterday was the first time both teams played with new MLB rules that include bigger bases, a pitch timer, and a restriction on the shift, which has become a popular defensive tactic. Now let's head to some trouble on the 118.
They performed on the 118 West before the 5 Laurel Canyon Boulevard after the stalled vehicle has been moved to the right shoulder. In Pomona on the 57 South with the 10 at the hit-and-run crash. It started in the right lane. West Street's got to move over to the right shoulder. In West LA 405 north of Sunset, that's a couch in the right lane. And out in San Bernardino County, Indian Hills on the 138 eastbound. And this is also the westbound time between Beakley Road and Hess Road. That's closed in both directions due to the icy conditions on the road. KFI in the sky, let's get you there faster. I'm Zachary Kagan. This is hard to admit, but when I was in junior high school, I was bullied so badly, I cried. Hello, I'm John Coyan, founder of Rooter Hero Plumbing. I was named Oganis after my grandfather, but as a kid, I was teased for having that name, so I changed it to John. John is the English version of Oganis, and it maintains the honor to my grandfather. My family and heritage are important to me, so staying true to myself and Rooter Hero Plumbing are important. Staying true to Rooter Hero Plumbing means being true to you and delivering world-class service. That's why my cell phone number is on the back of every Rooter Hero Plumbing business card. Call us at 866-77, and we'll keep for you $77. That's 866-77. Thank you. CL 102-8886.
Southland weather from KFI. Rain is back tonight with lows in the mid-40s, down to mid-30s in the Inland Empire, 30s with a chance of snow in the Antelope Valley. Rain tomorrow with highs in the mid-50s, 40s, and a bit of snow in the Antelope Valley. And it's going to look like that until Wednesday night. Right now it's 51 in Costa Mesa, 55 in Anaheim, 47 in Santa Monica, 46 in Beverly Hills. We lead local. Live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom, I'm Mark Long.
KFI AM 640. Heard everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Welcome to Before the Coast. Strange stories from the iHeart Vault. I'm Clay Rowe. Tonight, we showcase the podcast Strange Arrivals, exploring the folklore and culture surrounding UFO encounters by going deep into the source material and examining the key stories at the center. Tonight we're going to sample episode 3 entitled What's Yellow, where host Toby Ball continues to unravel one of history's most famous cases of alien abduction, the story of Betty and Barney Hill. UFO culture of the 1950s revolved around two competing visions, one of contact with advanced beings from within our solar system, and another focusing on sightings of distant flying objects in the sky. Under hypnosis, Betty and Barney Hill told a story that differed from both of these narratives, one of capture and examination by alien beings. Here's Strange arrivals on Before the Coast. Strange stories from the iHeart Files on KFI AM 640.
That's strong. Yeah, on the selfie.
The story that Betty and Barney told under hypnosis was extraordinary. A tale of alien encounter unlike anything before it. An account so detailed that the story itself seemed to offer possible that it was more than a delusion.
Why you can't
It
look
began
on
with
the
Barney turning off the highway and onto a rural road. I'm Toby Ball, and this is Strange Arrivals. Though the Hills abduction experience was the first to become widely known, their supposed case wasn't the first of its kind. About 4 years before the couple's experience, another possible abduction had taken place on a farm in the Minas Gerais region of Brazil. History professor and host of the Saucer Life podcast, Aaron Boyes.
Antonio Boas, in South America in 1957, is out in the field and encounters a UFO. And he's taken aboard it, but it's not sort of a typical 1950s contactee experience. There are strange-looking people on the craft, and they're human-ish, but they're not human. And there's one figure in particular. He identifies the figure as female with red hair and a pale body, and he's taken into a room, and medical tests are performed on him, and he's strapped down and he's naked. And then he has a sexual encounter with this woman. And the impression we get from the tale that's told to a researcher who then tells it to people from the American organization APRO, who were the first to sort of publish an English language sort of report of this in the late 1950s, is that they were extracting semen probably for whatever experimental purpose they had. After the encounter, Phyllis Boas is disoriented, in pain, he's got a headache, some vision problems, vertigo, all kinds of stuff going on. And he tells his story, and he finds a researcher and tells him the story, and no matter how many times he tells the story, it remains remarkably consistent. It's not from hypnosis, it's from his conscious memory of what went on. And he's just a regular guy, he's working, he will eventually go to law school, become a lawyer, I believe. He's got nothing to gain, really, by telling this outlandish and frankly embarrassing story. There's some strange details in it that are just really interesting. The woman, we'll call them a woman, being on the saucer that has a sexual encounter with him, she screams like an animal, sort of this inhuman, animalistic noise emanates from her and greatly disturbs him. And he's sort of aroused sort of despite himself and is literally forced into this act. And it's troubling and it's awkward and it's strange, and like I said, there's no upside to sharing this with people, but he does share it. Phyllis Boas essentially claimed he was sexually assaulted by a feral space woman. He would say that before they left, this woman rubbed her belly and pointed up towards the stars. He understood this to mean that she was taking what would be their baby back to where she'd come from. Phyllis Boas' story made it to the U.S. before Betty and Barney Hill's experience, but it seems very unlikely that either Betty or Barney would have known of it. Aaron mentioned APRO before, and does again here. It's an acronym for the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization, a UFO research group at the time. APRO published the story in their newsletter in the late 1950s, and I think their book Flying Saucer Occupants came out in the late 50s or early 60s, and it's in this book, Flying Saucer Occupants, which was published in a known to the general public or people driving down the road in New Hampshire in the mid-60s, I wouldn't think. For Betty and Barney, though, their UFO sighting was different. It started with a light in the sky and reached a climax when they encountered a spaceship near Indian Head. That story ended when they arrived home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, at least 2 hours later than they'd expected. They had continuous memory of these events. That is, there was no perceivable gap between the events and Betty and Barney's ability to recall them. In the days following the encounter, Betty had unusually vivid dreams about being aboard a spaceship, but neither she nor Barney actually remembered anything.
I can hear if the internet.
The memory of these events only emerged 2 years later. During the first half of 1964, the Hills made the hour-long drive to the Boston office of Dr. Benjamin Simon. During separate hypnosis sessions with Dr. Simon, Betty and Barney told very similar stories about being brought aboard an alien spacecraft. So what exactly happened to Barney and Betty Hill during those 2 missing hours? After Betty and Barney turned off into the woods, they found themselves in a sort of trance. They remember being escorted through the woods to where the UFO waited. Betty said Barney was totally out of it and provided no resistance. Betty struggled, but was no match for the beings. They were brought up a ramp and into the ship. Barney, from a May 1966 radio interview.
I was carried past one door into another door, and there was this little pie shape, as I described it, much like a pie, with the corner of the pie cut off. There was just one table that was very small for my body. I'm about 5'8", where when I rushed down, I got onto the table myself, and I am continually hearing this voice that is telling me that no harm is going to come to me. It's only a matter of a few tests that are going to be conducted. This was more or less remain calm and that will soon be over with, and I'll be about my business with no damage done.
Strange Arrivals will return in a moment.
You're listening to What's Yellow from the podcast Strange Arrivals on Before the Coast. Strange stories from the iHeart Vault. We'll have more coming up next on KFI. Time now for a news update.
I'm Mark Bronner, live in a KFI 24-hour newsroom. The National Weather Service says another storm system's heading our way with rain and mountain snow late tonight through Wednesday. A warming and drying trend is expected later this week. The boat, crowded with migrants, has smashed into reefs and broken apart off the Italian coast, killing nearly 60 people, with dozens more missing. And Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is the winner at this year's 50th Annual Annie Awards. They celebrate the best of animation. It was last night at UCLA's Royce Hall, and it won the Best Animated Feature and Best Direction Feature. We'll check out some Trouble on the 110 when we come back.
The Smell Good Plumbers at Mike Diamond will unclog your drain for $99. Having your stoppage unstopped by these aroma-friendly technicians can save you money, prevent flooding inside your home, and remove all unnecessary worry from your life. Your drain will drain more efficiently, your pipes will flow smoother, and your faith in mankind will be restored. This $99 unstopped rate applies to kitchen sinks, mainline sewer stoppages, and all 5 coronary arteries. Schedule an appointment today, and your Mike Diamond plumber will show up on time, act professional, and smell better than a new car wrapped in bacon. You will be able to get back to life sooner, focus on things that really matter, and avoid the unsanitary atrocities of Bubba the Butt Crack Plumber. No Bubba's here, ma'am. Unclogged drain. Reference the $99 stoppage page at thesmellgoodplumber.com. Then call 800-446-MIKE. Contractor license number 29910. This is Mike Diamond, and I guarantee my plumber will show up on time and smell good, or your house call is free.
We've got a crash on the 110.
In South LA on the 110 South Century Boulevard, it's full traffic on the way to Manchester Avenue due to a crash involving an overturned vehicle in the lanes. In Pacoima on the 118 West before the Pride at the stall block in the right shoulder. In Pico Rivera, 605 north of Washington, that's a couch taking up the 2 middle lanes. And on the Cajon Pass on the 15 north of Oakville Road, that's a stalled vehicle taking up the right lane. KFI in the sky will stay there faster. I'm Zachary Hagan.
This report is sponsored by the California DMV. Did you know that many DMV tasks, like renewing your registration or starting starting your Real ID application can be done online any time of day. Check them off your to-do list without a trip to the DMV. Get started today at dmv.ca.gov/online.
I'm Martin Hope, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I told you about how your nose is the body's air filter. But Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs. And that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Haley, quote, Navage is the best thing I've bought. I love it. My nose feels so clear now and I can breathe. I've been struggling with a stuffy nose for weeks. I bought Navage and it's amazing. For this one, I use Navage every night, could not imagine life without it. I have 5 cats, and before I found Navage, I was a clogged mess. Now I breathe so much better, unquote. Those are two of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Angie's List is now Angie, and we've heard a lot of theories about why. I thought it was an eco-boom. Your word? Less paper.
It was so you could say it faster. No, to be more iconic.
Must be interesting. But those aren't quite right. It's because now you can compare option prices, book a service instantly, and even get your project handled from start to finish. Sounds easy. It is, and it makes us so much more than just a list. Get started at Angie.com. That's A-N-G-I. Or download the app today. Honey, is our car still under warranty?
No, not anymore.
My sister just got an extended service plan from Ox Car Care.
Ox Car Care?
Yeah, Ox will cover our repair bills if anything happens to our car, new brakes, a transmission,
You
AC, or engine problems. Plus, Ox Car Care offers free oil changes, tire rotation, and roadside assistance.
Wait a minute, we pay nothing on the repairs. Ox gets it fixed for us? Free oil changes, free tire rotation, and free roadside assistance? What's the number?
800-301-4089. Ox has a 30-day money-back guarantee and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They handle their claims from start to finish, unlike other warranty companies. We should call now. 800-301-4089.
The last thing we need is an unexpected car repair bill. I'm calling Ox Car Care now.
Call Ox Car Care for your free quote. 800-301-4089. Ask about senior and military discounts. Ox covers commercial car owners too. Don't get stuck with a major car repair bill. Call Ox Car Care. 800-301-4089.
Black businesses are thriving. So are our schools, our votes, and our representation in city halls and state houses across the country. We are Black and thriving. Find the NAACP in your community and support the work that keeps our entrepreneurs, our students, and our culture moving forward. This Black History Month, thrive with us by donating to the NAACP. Text DONATE to 20707 to honor Black history and support Black futures.
Alphabet Boys is a new podcast series that goes inside undercover investigations. In the first season, we're diving into an FBI investigation of the 2020 protests. It involves a cigar-smoking mystery man who drives a silver hearse. And this is how this hearse will like a lot of goes. But are federal agents catching bad guys or creating them? He was just waiting for me to set the date, the time, and then for sure he was trying to get it to happen. Listen to Alphabet Boys on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
They got to start filling these potholes up. It's really bad. Your whole car frame is going to shatter going over some of these things. You feel like your wheels are going to go flying off. You're going to bend your axles. It's such a third world country. John and Ken. I've been to third world countries. It's actually worse than third world country.
To 4 p.m. on KFI and on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app.
KFI AM 640 heard everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. I'm Clay Rowe, and you're listening to Before the Coast, strange stories from the iHeart Vault. Let's return now to hear more about history's most famous case of alien abduction, the story of Betty and Barney Hill podcast, Strange Arrivals.
The next several clips feature Betty, recorded decades later in the 1980s and 90s.
So went on board the craft, and I went into an unlighted corridor. And then I was taken into the first room. Bonnie was taken into the second room. And at this point, for purposes of identification, I now call him the leader. But under hypnosis, I always refer to him as the one who speaks English. And so he was in the room, and then the examiner came in, and there were 9 others who stayed in the corridor. I was taken into the first room, and it was like there. There was a tall table, there was a stool, and then the wall, there were doors in the wall that would slide back and forth. And they began to check my eyes, ears, nose, throat, my feet, my hands. And the leader would look at my skin, and then the examiner, they took skin, and they were, all the time they're carrying on this conversation. Very
Kathleen Martin.
They were very interested in every opening in her body and to looking at everything. They were especially interested in her teeth, their joints. They removed their shoes. They moved their joints, their fingers, their toes, their arms, their legs. And then they appeared to have done neurological testing on Betty and Bonnie as well. Betty stated that they had placed a stylus kind of thing on her back.
Betty continues the story from the transcript of her March 14th, 1964 hypnosis session, as read by an actress.
So I'm sitting on the stool, and there's this little bracket. My head is resting against the bracket, and the examiner opens my eyes, and he looks in them with a light. And he opens my mouth, and he looks at my throat and my cheeks, and he looks in my ears. And then he turns my head, and he looks in this ear. And then he takes out like a swab or a Q-tip. I guess it is like they use on babies. And he cleaned out. He puts it in my left ear. And then he puts this on another piece of material. And the leader takes it and he rolls it up. And he puts it in the top drawer too. Then he feels my hair and then the back of my neck. And then they take a couple strands of my hair and they pull it out. And he gives it to the leader, and he wraps that all up, and he puts that in the top drawer. Then he takes something that may be like scissors. I don't know what it is. And they cut a piece of my hair here. He starts feeling behind my ears and under my chin and down my neck and through my shoulders, around my collarbone. And then they take off my shoes, and they look at my feet. And you look at my hand. Betty was taken to the table where they removed her dress. They did not know how to undo a zipper, and so they ended up tearing the top of Betty's dress. And then she showed them how to unzip that zipper. The dress fell into a pile on the floor, and her slip was pulled up. And then the final test was they tried to insert a needle-like instrument in my navel. It caused a great deal of pain, so they stopped doing this. And this was in 1961. And at that time, we didn't have any kind of testing like this. It was later we developed it.
She's talking about amniocentesis, a test used with pregnant women that can determine the gender of a fetus, as well as any possible infections or chromosomal abnormalities. It was under development in 1961, but wasn't presented to the public until 1965. Betty, of course, was not pregnant.
It caused so much pain to Betty that she screamed in agony and she writhed. The leader removed her pain by doing something. Generally, the one that she called the leader that we now call the escort, who is with experiencers,
time again when they are taken. Communication is the one who establishes a relationship with that human subject and also removes any pain or any anxiety or fear that the subject is experiencing. Dr. Simon had to end that session early due to the degree of trauma that Betty was experiencing. In the next session that he came to, the physician had left the room. He had gone to do Barney's examination. Betty didn't know that at the time, but that's what was taking place in the next room over.
Betty recounted being given a kind of physical examination, including a painful procedure involving a needle being inserted in her navel. When the exam was completed, the being that she called the physician left the room. Though she didn't know it at the time, he'd gone to see Barney. From the 1966 radio interview.
I also know resistance, so I won't use the concern about Betty's whereabouts. I might feel a little guilty as a husband to not be concerned about my wife, but this is such a terrifying situation that I was only concerned about myself, and I was being assured that I wasn't going to be harmed. So that I was placed on this table where my trousers were removed and my shirt was pulled up toward my head, which would have made my back, my undershirt was pulled up along with it, where my back would have been there. And I was turned over on my back and my stomach, as well as while I could feel what I call a single going up and down the spinal column. With this examination, I remembered a tug at my teeth, and this is the way I described it. And also, while in this position of being examined, I opened my eyes again, basically because I could hear a kind of noise, as if people or someone was talking. I opened my eyes and I looked and I saw these three short men, and this is when I got a good look at the face. I immediately closed my eyes because what I saw was terrifying. So I was stating, it doesn't mean that they were terrifying. Well, how would you describe it? So I saw this, and this is interesting because most people they have these little green men, and they were not green men. So they were a grayish, metallic gray in color. And I might also say that I'm quite sure they were not wearing masks, rather any kind of apparatus over the head for breathing purposes, because I could see what would have been a mouth, a thin line without a lip muscle that when parting was open, there was a membrane inside that fluttered really right at the end of the mouth itself. And this fluttered, and this seemed to be a way that they communicated with one another. It was a very peculiar kind of humming sound.
Strange Arrivals will return in a moment.
You're listening to What's Yellow from the podcast Strange Arrivals on Before the Coast, Strange Artworld. We'll have more coming up next on KFI. Time now for a news update.
Mark Ronner live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Tens of thousands of people are without power thanks to the massive winter storm that rolled through Southern California. ABC's Zarian Shah says the storm dumped more than 10 inches of rain on Woodland Hills, with 5 or more inches of rain in several other areas.
At higher elevations, Californians see heavy snow, forcing roads across the state to close. But down below, intense downpours causing flash flooding. In Valencia, several motorhomes and trees falling into the Santa Clara River after an embankment in a local RV park began crumbling and collapsing.
The storm's moved out, but more rain is likely tonight through Wednesday. News brought to you by Pacific Coast Termite. Almost 4 feet of snow has fallen in Big Bear, which has stranded some people visiting the mountain town. But that's not a problem for some, as Big Bear Mountain progress with the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio.
If you have been anywhere near the derailment site, well, it's definitely looking better. You can dirt being hauled, liquids being stored, hauled off and stored. You can see the scraps being removed. That's all, again, part of that initial phase of emergency response.
Dan Vogel with the Ohio EPA says over 500 home reentry screenings have been conducted in the city as officials work to subpoena following the train derailment. 15 truckloads of contaminated soil were already disposed of at a licensed hazardous waste treatment and disposal facility since the derailment. Nearly 30 million Americans will be getting a significant cut in their food stamps benefits. ABC's Alexis Christophorous says pandemic-era payments are coming to an end.
Cut comes as Americans continue to struggle with stubbornly high inflation. Food prices alone up more than 10% from a year ago, with staples like eggs, butter, cereal, and bread up by double-digit percentages. Food banks across the country now racing to meet increased demand and fill the gap of the reduced benefits, some appealing to their states for help.
Local food banks are expecting an increased demand. We have a crash on the 105.
It's involving a motorcycle and off-road on the 105 West to the 405. It's barely a motorcycle crashed into the center divider. Caltrain and CHP are on the scene. And south of the 110 South of Century Boulevard, that's a crash involving an overturned vehicle in two middle lanes. And for corner of 118 West before the fine. That's a stall taking up the right shoulder. On 710 South of Firestone Boulevard in Southgate, that's a stall in the center lane. And then Bloomington, San Bernardino County, and McKinney to Cedar Avenue, that's a stall vehicle taking up the two right lanes.
Missions of service champions. We always ask, would I trust this person to show up on my mother's doorstep? Leland Smith here, founder of Service Champions Plumbing, Heating, and AC. If a technician doesn't pass the mother's doorstep test, they'll never make it to your house. Applicants have to look clean and professional, and they have to be kind and polite, and they have to treat people with respect. They have to pass the background check and the drug test. When they do show up, they'll be wearing a clean uniform and a company ID. They'll wear shoe covers in your home and clean up after they leave. You're going to love your Service Champions technician, because I flat out guarantee you, if I wouldn't send them to my mother's doorstep, I would never send them to yours. Our number is 833-777-7777, or find us online at servicechampions.com.
Southland weather from KFI. Our respite is over and rain's back tonight with lows in the mid-40s down mid-30s in the Inland Empire, 30s with a chance of snow in the Antelope Valley. Rain tomorrow with highs in the mid-50s down to 40s with a bit of snow in the Antelope Valley, and it's going to look like that until Wednesday night. Right now it is 52 at Seal Beach, 51 La Palma. We lead local live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Mark Ronner.
Visit ukfeedit.org or call 833-422-4255. Ask for medication to treat COVID-19. Sponsored by the California Department of Public Health.
This year is the year to learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. No matter what's inspiring you to learn a language, travel, work, family, or just for fun, the Rosetta Stone app makes it easy to get started and stay motivated to reach your goals. Right now, get a lifetime unlimited subscription with forever access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages for 40% off. Visit rosettastone.com today and save 40%. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned. This is Jacob Emron. If you've been involved in a motorcycle accident, call 844-24-JACOB.
More stimulating talk.
An iHeart radio station.
Download the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts. KFI AM 640 heard everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. I'm Clay Rowe, and you're listening to Before the Coast, strange stories from the iHeart vaults. Let's return now to hear more about history's most famous case of alien abduction, the story of Betty and Barney Hill, from the podcast Strange Arrivals.
This is from the transcript of Barney's February 29th session, as read by an actor.
I was lying on a table and my fly was open. I thought, I laid in a cup around my private parts. And then
stopped. I thought, how funny. I thought, how funny. If I keep real quiet and real still, I won't be harmed. And it will be over. And I will just stay here anywhere to think of God, think of Jesus, and think I am not afraid. They also examined Barney's mouth and found something that surprised them. They rushed to Betty's room to get more information.
They came running into the room, some of them, and they had dentures in their hands. I guess when they checked Barney's mouth, they noticed that his teeth were removable, but Betty's were not. So they were very curious about what was going on, and they tried to pull Betty's teeth out, but she explained that some humans lose their teeth.
This led to a very confusing exchange between Betty and the leader. Again, for Betty's hypnosis session on March 14th.
And the leader said, does this happen to many people? And he was very, he acted as if he didn't believe me. And I said, well, yes, it happens to almost everyone as they get older. And he said, well, what's older? And I said, old age. So he said, what's old age? And I said, well, it varies, but as a person gets older, there are changes in him, particularly physically. He sort of begins to break down with old age. And so he said, well, what is age?
It was very apparent that I was using words that, although he spoke English, his knowledge of the meaning of most of my words were foreign to him. And I just couldn't seem to find the right words to make him understand. So then he said, diet. What's diet? Raw foods. And I said, vegetables. And he said, what's vegetables? So I explained, we have many of them. I'll tell you about squash. So I said, squash is yellow. And he said, what's yellow? You know? So I look all around and there's nothing yellow. So we didn't get along too well, and I wasn't able to explain what I was saying.
Betty eventually suggested that maybe she could set up a meeting with people who would be better able to answer his question. After her physical exam was completed, Betty had apparently grown comfortable enough to initiate a conversation with the leader. This is Betty talking with Dennis McCarthy, who was the interviewer for WICH in 1979.
The leader someone suggested we should call him the interpreter, because he was the only one who spoke English. He did speak with an accent. The others did not speak English, so they had their own language in which they communicated with each other.
Did you get a chance to ask them where they came from or why they were here?
Yes, I asked. That was the one question I asked. I asked Leah two questions. When we still began to take back to Rachel Catholic, which we gave me a book and then later took it back on the basis that we were not going to need that. It was like a large, very thin, hard, what she called a book, but it's more like what we think of as a tablet today. There were symbols embedded in this. There were, I believe it was 5 rows of symbols.
We'll get back to these symbols later in the episode. Barney's examination, meanwhile, had ended. From Betty's hypnosis session on March 14th, 1964.
And then Barney's coming. They're bringing, and I got the book. Somebody coming out. That Barney guy just so shocked. Good heavens. He's just awful. I underestimated because I should have received it. So now it's time to go back to the car, and the leader said, come on, we'll walk back to the car with you.
Barney, again, isn't engaging with their abductors.
I did not carry on a conversation with these creatures, and at best that I could describe, I was treated very indifferent. The best that I can say is much like as if we found wild game in the wood, and we decided to capture it with the to go down the ramp when some of the other men, not the leader, but some of the other men are talking. I don't know what they say, but they're very excited. And the leader is saying, he's saying something. They're quite, they're undecided about something. And then, the leader comes over and takes my foot. And I said, no, I'm furious. I said, you promised, you gave me a word I could have it. And he said, I know it. He said, but the other, and I said, but this is my proof. If you take the book away from me, I'll have no proof that this has happened. And he said, that's the whole point. They don't want you to know it's happened. They want you to forget all about it. And that's why I'm taking the book.
The idea that she might not remember this experience worried Betty. She became concerned that she wouldn't encounter these aliens again. From the 1987 presentation.
And I said, I need to know if you're going to come back because I need to know when to meet you. And he said, if we decide to come back, we'll let you know. And I said, well, I don't live around here. He said, we'll find you. So then he's walking back to the car, and he said, well, I'm going to leave you here. But now go down by your car, and stay by your car, and watch us leave. If you stay that distance away, you'll be safe. You won't be injured in any way. So I went back to the car, and I picked up my dog, who was cowering on the front seat. Finally got out, I leaned against the fender of the car, and I saw this craft become surrounded by this swirling, fiery, orange mass that was going round and round and round, and it lifted up, went up, dipped down, and went up again, and was gone. And I'm saying to God, you don't need to.
Strange arrivals will return in a moment.
You're listening to What's Yellow from the podcast Strange Arrivals. On Before the Coast, strange stories from the iHeartWorld. We'll have more coming up next on KFI. Time now for a news update.
Live in a KFI 24-hour newsroom. Blizzard warnings go into effect tomorrow morning and last until Wednesday for much of the Sierra Nevada. The National Weather Service warns residents in the Sacramento area to avoid travel as wind gusts could reach up to 50 miles per hour. YouTube star Jake Paul suffered the first defeat of his pro boxing career, losing a split decision to Tommy Fury in Saudi Arabia, the first true professional boxer Paul has fought. And Gordon Pinsent, an award-winning Canadian actor known for his performance as a heartbroken husband in the film Away From Her, has died at 92. We'll look at some trouble on the 110 right after this.
On the podcast Really Know Really, join best friends Jason Alexander and Peter Tilton, along with experts, newsmakers, and celebrities, in a search for answers to life's most baffling, intriguing, and annoying questions. You know, those things that make you go, really? Now, really?
I think there was a 17-year-old in Rhode Island who ran a candidate that was a deepfake. Really? Wait, that's news to me. That's really no really right there. Really no really.
Listen to Really Know Really on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Crash on the 110.
In downtown LA on the 110 north at the 10, that's the crash block to the left lane of the transition road. The traffic back down pretty good past 6th Position Boulevard. On the 105 west of the 405, that rear crash involving a motorcycle and Hawthorne, that's cleared. It's south of land, the 110 south of Century Boulevard, that crash is cleared as well. And Pacoima, 118 west before the 5, so that's a stalled crowd. Both vehicles take up the right shoulder. They're southeast and then south of Firestone Boulevard that stall in the center lane. KFI in the sky has beaten their faster. I'm Zachary Hagan.
This report is sponsored by the California DMV. Did you know that many DMV tasks, like renewing your registration or starting your Real ID application, can be done online any time of day? Check them off your to-do list without a trip to the DMV. Get started today at dmv.ca.gov/online.
And as Sport and Fitness, take advantage of premium fitness amenities with a 3-day free pass. Sign up today at startatsportofitness.com. Get more workout for less with features like state-of-the-art strength and cardio equipment, free weights, a functional training area, and so much more. It's time to start fresh for less with our $0 enrollment fee. We have everything you need for a low monthly cost. Grab your free 3-day pass at startatsportofitness.com. Subject to annual fee. Must pay first and last month's dues of $29.99 to join. Terms and conditions apply. Amenities and facilities may vary.
Welcome to the CPAP Hayes live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife Michelle is trying to conceive a raise.
Michelle throws an elbow.
He's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get inspired.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspires a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just
learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
It's hard to admit, but when I was in junior high school, I was bullied so badly, I cried. Hello, I'm John Akoyan, founder of Rooter Hero Plumbing. I was named Oganes after my grandfather, but as a kid, I was teased for having that name, so I changed it to John. John is the English version of Oganes, and it maintains the honor to my grandfather. My family and heritage are important to me, so staying true to myself and Rooter Hero Plumbing are important. Staying true to Rooter Hero Plumbing means being true to you and delivering world-class service. That's why my cell phone number is on the back of every Rooter Hero Plumbing business card. Call us at 866-GREEN77 and we'll cable your line for $77. That's 866-GREEN77. Thank you.
CL 102-8886.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlique's Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlique's Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Angie's List is now Angie, and we've heard a lot of theories about why. I thought it was an eco boom.
It was so you could say it faster. No.
This is a project handled from start to finish.
Now, baby.
It is, and it makes us so much more than just a list. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI. Or download the app today.
Well,
after letting China's balloon sail across the country, you're going to take out a science project from a hobbyist group in northern Illinois?
The Northern Illinois Bottle Cap Balloon Brigade does not currently have any merch available on their website.
What a missed opportunity.
By the way, Gary and Shannon, they need to get somebody in there quickly.
Yeah.
Live 9 to 1 p.m. on KFI and on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app.
KFI AM 640 heard everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. I'm Clay Rowe, and you're listening to Before the Coast, strange stories from the iHeart Vault. Let's return now to hear more about history's most famous case of alien abduction, the story of Betty and Barney Hill from the podcast Strange
So
Arrivals.
that thing having the
Under
volume never gets
hypnosis,
there.
Betty would say that she was
Even if
really
you're only
delighted
99%
about the whole thing
successful.
and was determined not to forget the experience. Barney was less
Yeah.
enthusiastic. Betty and Barney believed that this abduction experience happened between the two times that they heard the buzzing noise from the rear of their car while driving south away from Indian Head tourist area. If they are right about this, the next thing that happened was that they gained real consciousness on Route 3 near Ashland, New Hampshire, about 30 miles south of Indian Head. From there, they would drive to Concord to look for coffee, and then continue their journey to Portsmouth. This then gave a framework to explain the missing time. Under hypnosis, Betty remembered being shown two objects on the spaceship. One of these objects the leader had given her and then taken back, a book with alien symbols.
I have no idea what the contents were. I got a good look at the outside of the book and a few of the pages. It was not an ordinary book like we have. I don't know what the substance was it was made out of, but the pages were extremely thin and very, very smooth, almost like they were coated with plastic. The symbols went up and down rather than across, and it was a very simplified script. Nothing I'd ever seen before.
In 2001, Kathleen Martin asked her aunt to recreate what she had seen in the book.
I asked Betty to sketch the symbols that she remembered observing on the craft. It took her a couple of weeks for her memory to return, but she did sketch them.
These symbols were then seen by Dr. Don Dondery, a retired associate professor at McGill University who has done research on alien abductions. We'll hear from Dr. Dondery later in this series. He had the idea to compare Betty's to symbols recalled by other supposed abductees. These other symbols had been compiled for a study undertaken by Dr. Dondery, along with artist and UFO researcher Bud Hopkins and SUNY Brockport professor Stuart Appel. This study attempted to determine if the symbols recalled by these possible abductees were true memories of what they'd seen on alien spacecraft, or just products of their imagination. Over time, Hopkins had asked purported abductees to draw the symbols they remembered seeing during their abduction experience. He'd collected drawings from 24 people, but how could they determine if they were quote-unquote real and not imagined? Don Dondery wrote about this study in his book, UFOs, ETs, Bacteria They Were Given. Despite not knowing the origins of the individual cards, they scored the abductee symbols differently than the faker symbols. In other words, in going through the evaluation process, they could tell the difference. This seemed to suggest that the abductees might have actually seen alien symbols. Still, Dondery stresses that this symbol evidence is consistent with, but not sufficient proof of the conclusion that the abduction experiences were real. As for the symbols that Betty drew,
Dr. Dondery saw symbols, he read the book, and he compared those symbols to the symbols that he and Dr. Appel had used in the act. What they discovered was that Betty's symbols were very, very much like the the abductees that Bud Hopkins had been working with dating back to the 1970s. So this was an important piece of information, some verification.
I've looked at the symbols myself, and to my eye, they seem like the kinds of things anyone might make up for a basic cipher. Geometric shapes, lines, dots, and so on. Nothing as complicated as Egyptian hieroglyphics, for instance. To make things even less clear, the abductee symbols that I saw from the study done by Dondery, Hopkins, and Appel didn't seem to look very much like each other. Betty's symbols looked like some, and not at all like others. This so-called evidence seems to be inconclusive at best. In fact, the alien symbols seem like almost an afterthought when you talk to people about the Hill case.
Strange Arrivals is a production of iHeartRadio and Brennan Miles from Aaron Mankey. This episode was written and hosted by Toby Ball and produced by Miranda Hawkins and Josh Payne, with executive producers Alex Williams, Matt Frederick, and Aaron Mankey. Betty Hill was portrayed by Gina Rakicki.
Barney Hill was portrayed by Jason Williams.
Special thanks to the known special collections and archives at the University of New Hampshire, John Horrigan, WICH 1310 AM in Norwich, Connecticut, John White and David O'Leary, the executive producer of the History Channel's dramatic series, Project Blue Book. Learn more about the show over at BrennanMiles.com. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
You've been listening to strange arrivals on Before the Coast. Strange stories from the iHeart Vault. If you'd like to hear more from the Strange Arrivals series, just open up the free iHeart Radio app and search Strange Arrivals in the podcast category. Stay tuned for Coast to Coast coming up next, right after a news update. You've been listening to Before the Coast. I'm Clay, and I'll be back every weekend evening at 9 with more strange stories from the iHeart Vault on KFI AM 640, heard everywhere on the iHeart Radio app.
Untangling the mess until it makes sense.
KFI.
And the KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeart Radio app.
Quantifying our winter deluge, I'm Mark Bronner, live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. National Weather Service says the winter storm that's finally moved out dumped nearly 11 inches of rain on Woodland Hills. Just over 9 inches of rain fell in La Cañada, Flint Ridge. Pasadena got 8 inches, just over 6 inches fell in Burbank and Bel Air. Mountain High got 93 inches of snow. 40 inches of snow fell on Mount Wilson. The Weather Service says another storm system will bring in more rain and more snow to the mountains from late tonight through Wednesday. At least 3 motorhomes fell into the Santa Clara River when an embankment collapsed inside an RV park in Valencia. This happened yesterday at the Valencia Travel Village RV Resort on Highway 126 near the 5 freeway. No one was inside the motorhomes when they fell into the river. Bishop David O'Connell has been honored during special prayer service in Anaheim. The service got underway at 11:30 this morning at the Religious Education Congress 2023, the arena of the Anaheim Convention Center. The service was led by Archbishop Jose Gomez. O'Connell was recently murdered in his home in Hacienda Heights. His housekeeper's husband has been arrested in connection with the killing. A Ukrainian refugee family staying in Thousand Oaks says they need a place to live. Let's try that again.
The family of 5 have been sharing a home with Sherry Phoenix and her husband.
This is the Kurta family. Margarita is 14 years old. Seva is 8 years old. Adriana is 5. And the parents are Julia and Andre.
Phoenix says in order to qualify for financial aid, the Kurtas need a permanent home, but it's not that easy.
And there doesn't seem to be anybody in an organization who is helping them find a place.
Using Google Translate, Julia says they had to leave to survive.
We hid for a week and went out of town when rockets were flying exploded near us, and we didn't have a bomb shelter, and the children were just hiding under the table.
I asked her 14-year-old daughter Margarita how it's been for her and her siblings.
My parents mostly don't talk about the war to my brother and sister. Here we feel safe, and there are many opportunities.
Steve Gregory, KFI News.
To help, email Steve Gregory at iHeartMedia.com. Texas Republican Representative Michael McCall says F-16 fighter jets and long-range missiles need to be given to Ukraine in its fight against Russia. McCall says with pressure from Congress, the U.S. can get Ukraine what they need to finally win the war.
If they don't get the momentum right now, with the Russian offensive coming into the country right now, they have a window of time with the counteroffensive.
McCall said it takes 3 to 6 months to train on the potential equipment, and time's being wasted by not starting this as soon as possible. He said support for the war from other politicians is fading because the war's taking too long. We have a crash in downtown L.A.
On the 110 northbound connector to the 10 westbound, we have a crash and emergency crews blocking that transition road. Watch for some delays from Exposition. In Southgate, this is on the 7th and southbound at Firestone. Conked out car there. It's out of lanes and on the right shoulder, but watch for some looking for delays as you approach. Long Beach, we have good news. Earlier crash that was on the 405 northbound at the 7th end has been cleared from lanes. Your drive is recovering in that area. KFI, the sky helps get you there faster. O'Brien Van.
And Southland weather from KFI. Rain is back after our respite tonight with lows in the mid-40s, down to mid-30s in the Inland Empire, 30s, and a chance of snow in the Antelope Valley. Tomorrow, rain again, highs in the mid-50s, 40s with some snow in the Antelope Valley, and it's going to look like that through Wednesday night. Right now, it's 52 in Irvine, 47 in Yorba Linda, 49 in Carson, 51 in Huntington Beach. We lead local, live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Mark Bronner.
On the podcast, The Last Soviet, Last Fast from Insane shares his own experiences of astronaut training in Russia. Yes, that's true. And tells the story of the final cosmonaut, a man trapped in space while his nation